Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wist. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Number 9. The film His Bad Blood is about the son of a gangster who is now in his 30s, has some interesting things going on, but despite that is a little incoherent, unfocused, and not atmospheric enough to justify those shortcomings. That being said, Shinchi, the mentioned son, is not a bad one at the end, but he's so unlikable throughout the majority of the film. Even though we understand why he's the way he is, still makes him hard to root for him as a protagonist. The father character, Hiroshi, is obviously unlikable, but his gang isn't even really all that cool, which is how a gangster in a film can seduce or trick an audience into liking them, or at least being interested in them. We all carry a degree of trauma with us, and life is very difficult. But everything in this movie happens too late, and the dark humor is not really all that good, which was an element that the film was promoting. Despite the serious shortcomings, to see Shinji grow and develop is a major reward, and Japan makes more competent films than China does currently, so a bad Japanese movie is better than a bad Chinese movie. Number 8. Critters Attack is a great gateway for kids to start getting into horror movies, as they have been through the Critters franchise for over 30 years, and it must be said that being around for over 30 years is a major accomplishment. This is a film that is ideal for kids 8 to 12. It is sweet and cute, but also has enough nasty special effects for them to feel like they are part of something edgy, even dangerous, given the aggressive nature of these aliens. The storyline consists of a lot of moving around, showing off different environments, which were actually shot in South Africa. Well, the setting is in America, but what is really important is that it's a film about attractive young people running away and fighting aliens. Parents shouldn't freak out about this one. It is very sweet for a film like this, but it's threatening enough that the kids might feel like they're a part of something mildly dangerous, and that they might be being edgy, while in reality, they are not at all. The film won't change lives, but there's no need to be cynical about this kind of entertainment. It serves an entertaining purpose for a younger demographic, and there's no need to yell at kids to get off your lawn. Number 7. The film 1BR is loosely based off a 1970s Marxist cult where the Marxism is all about mind control and living in a lame apartment building where everyone is friendly out of fear they will be murdered for acting otherwise. Cults are extreme material that is great for the powerful medium of cinema, but the problem with this film is the protagonist Sarah is too frigid to get emotionally invested in because her story is just as lame as the apartment building. It becomes hard to go on her journey of being a stiff, getting brainwashed, then her coming to her senses because her character is not incredibly complex or relatable unless you're the submissive type. Cults are definitely disturbing though, so there are moments of cringe and of fear, which was accomplished on a 15-day shoot and a low budget, so the film does deserve some recognition on the freak-out merits. Besides Sarah, it is pretty well cast. The people in the building seem like the brainwashed type, but it's her co-worker friend, Lisa, who's just the opposite of submissive, that I thought was a much more intriguing character and would have been a more interesting choice as a lead. The LA setting is great for this movie since cults are so prominent in the city, and also because the conformist nature of fitting into a big business becomes a great cult way to go after the brainwashing that cults do. This movie, faults and all, is still a creepy time, so if you like horror and don't mind a low budget, you should consider 1BR. Number 6. How wonderful is it that a Richard Dreyfuss movie is playing at the Fantasia International Film Festival? With such credits as American Graffiti and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he certainly has a rich legacy. But now, does his latest feature fare? Well, it is really dotty given that the man is in his 70s. It is very sweet and all about love being enough in a comedy that should not be confused as science fiction. And it's just more an adorable movie that talks about space. The movie's called Astronauts, and Richard Dreyfuss plays a man named Angus who is overstaying his welcome with his son-in-law, but gets loads of affection from his grandson, yet he is sad as a widower and someone who is no longer working. Early on, we learn about a contest to go to space an affluent man is holding, and Angus gets shortlisted to go to space. While there are obstacles throughout the movie, the primary issue is Angus identifies that the lift-off will not be safe despite assurances that it will be. Angus proves that he is worth listening to, as he was right, and that even though he is a flawed man, he is fundamentally good, who believes in love evident through his actions. The movie is sweet without being emotional exploitation, and there's no tear-jerky stuff. It is simply a non-layered family film that may have more appeal than others because of Richard Dreyfuss and a lack of overt sappiness. If you get a chance to watch this, you will most likely enjoy it. Number 5. Let's talk about The Deeper You Dig. To call this project Twin Peaksy is a little unfair, but it's hard to begin reviewing this film with that initial label, as it is a horror film in a rural setting dealing with the practice of tarot card reading. David Lynch is into transcendental meditation, which informs his work. However, this project does use some sort of half-assed movie logic, tarot card style, which blends real-life magic with movie magic. Sometimes it feels like low-budget movies shouldn't even bother with special effects, since they cannot compare with higher-budget films in that regard. But in this case, the film uses the limitations in its favor. The cheap effects are distinct and effective in this weirdo movie. The mystery of the film is so plainly obvious, however the spiritual journey and reckoning is what makes the film dynamic and interesting. It feels like the filmmakers are convinced that the spirit realm is something that could be for real. The conviction in material is important to be distinct in a film like this, and while it is hard to know for sure if the filmmakers believe in tarot and the occult, there was a bit of an impression during the premiere of the film that they coyly do. You can think that's ridiculous, all you want, but for a do-it-yourself horror movie, the conviction helps. We can passively watch something at home, but it is better if the filmmakers actively believe in it. Number 4. Harpoon is a lot of fun for a horror movie, and it's sort of like a contemporary comedic take on Roman Polanski's debut feature, Knife in the Water. That film looked at a bourgeois Polish couple taking an offbeat young man onto their sailboat for a day of alienation, while Harpoon looks at a couple and the young man's best friend tagging along for a day of carnage. More plotting is seen in Harpoon in exchange for atmosphere, and the revelations drip in a smart way that makes this low-budget movie distinguish itself with a really good script and actors that do it justice. Scriptwriters will know that having 3 characters is an isolating and scary experience, which is why movies for children always have a large cast to make kids feel part of a community. But sheer isolation only works if things flow dramatically. Thankfully, the movie magic is in place with this type of movie, which makes it the best Canadian film of the year, and one that the Fantasia International Film Festival is lucky to have. Number 3, there is utter charm and cinematic obsession in this documentary that looks at the strange situation where, when released, Phantom of the Paradise flocked everywhere except Winnipeg. So this documentary is called Phantom of the Winnipeg. The reason might be that because of the love of rock music in the city, or it could be that something in the cold air understood what no one else did, but regardless, this documentary is made with such sincerity it's hard not to love. Star of the film Paul Williams, producer of the film Ed Preston, and fan of Canada Kevin Smith are featured in Phantom of Winnipeg, but it is the superfans that truly become the main attraction of this film. Their utter disgust with the rest of the world for not being interested in Phantom of the Paradise is vastly surpassed by their undying love of the Brian De Palma film, which Mr. De Palma should be flattered by. These fans are incredibly charming, and the film is an interesting comment on how fan culture has won the day with the empathetic light that the fans are shown in instead of being demonized under the umbrella of abnormal behavior. This is a charming document of fandom, and Paul Williams speaks of the fans with such reverence, it is damn near impossible not to like everyone in this documentary. Number 2. The movie Swallow is quite messed up emotional territory, which takes a seemingly ideal scenario and shows us the layers of sheer horror of what rich people could go through. Does it sound scary to you? How would you like to marry into wealth only to do nothing all day? The compulsive behavior kicks in fast for the protagonist Hunter, who engages in suicidal behavior while being unhappily married and expecting a child, which may seem selfish, but is logical in the film given how little she is actually cared about. Women as objects to bring children into the world and nothing more is terrifying, and it is the bourgeois expectations that is the true horror in this film, which doesn't rely on the supernatural or gunshots to bring about feelings of dread. The whole, oh please don't do that feeling kicks in a lot, and it is quite effective in the beginning. Then it turns into an expectation every 10 minutes or so, but this movie eventually loses some punch because of that. Revelations of Hunter's past are made, which are good, but this movie eventually loses some life, but regardless of that, it's freaky emotional territory and proof that genre films don't need spectacle or deal with the occult to freak the hell out of us. Number 1. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil. The title is so strong it functions not as a mere shout-out to Sergio Leone, but as being suggested to the entire plot of the film, which you haven't caught on is a cop teaming up with a gangster to kill a serial killer. It is a wonderful ass-kicking film which earns each gut punch the audience receives like an excellently conducted symphony. So for fans of action cinema, this is as good as it gets. Ask for no more and look no further. The transitions of scenes has an excellent flow to it, making it graceful aggression. It is not a relentless pace or even boring. Your attention will remain for the duration of the film, and while the violence is intense, it never gets old during this movie. South Korea is one of the most exciting places for cinema currently, and even by those high standards, this movie is incredibly well done. So Hollywood is going to have a tough time with their remake to top the original. This movie is the definition of good action cinema. It should be used in textbooks as an example of getting it right for future generations to understand the elements that need to be there to get it done right. That includes not only memorable acts of violence, but pacing, humor, motivation, and great chemistry with different kinds of characters. It is so hard to be remotely negative about this movie, when in the end, only positive things are remembered. It's not ass-kissing when you love ass-kicking.